Sex is the life force energy that runs through us all. Can you use sexual energy for your spiritual evolution? Or perhaps for emotional healing? Is it even possible? Clinical sexologist Dr. Martha Tara Lee will explore all these and more on Eros Evolution on OMTimes Radio.
Welcome to Eros Evolution, where sexuality and spirituality meets. This is Dr. Martha Tara Lee. I'm a clinical sexologist based in Singapore, and my company is called Eros Coaching. That's EROS coaching.com. Every week, I explore with a different guest their thoughts, attitudes, beliefs around the theme of the link between sexuality and spirituality. And today I have with me somebody who I'm a great fan of, and his name is Charlie Glickman. And we are talking about getting the sex you want. What would it be like if you could have the sex you really, really want? Can you imagine making that happen? Charlie Glickman PhD is an author, a somatic sex educator, and a sex and relationship coach. And he wants to help you overcome shame and embarrassment. Find new ways to talk with your partners. Discover how new ways to experience pleasure and enhance every aspect of your sex life. Charlie Glickman is an internationally acclaimed speaker, sex and relationship coach, sexuality educator, and sexological body worker. He has been working in this field for over 25 years, and some of his areas of focus include sex and shame, sex positivity, queer issues, masculinity and gender, communities of erotic affiliation, and many sexual and relationship practices. Charlie is also the co-author of The Ultimate Guide to Prostate Pleasure, Erotic Exploration for Men and Their Partners. You can find out more about him on his website, charlieglickman.com. That's GILCKMAN, or on Twitter and Facebook, charlie.glickman. For Charlie's sex coaching and sexological bodywork services, you can visit makesexeasy.com. Welcome to the show, Charlie.
Thank you, Martha. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So you've been in this field for 25 years, and I know that you've made the shift from being a sex educator to doing body work. Could you tell us more about what somatic sex education is and how it can help people?
Sure, I'd be glad to. So for many years, I was a sex educator. I taught workshops. I spoke at conferences. I did a lot of writing. So it was more talk-oriented. And there was a lot of value in that. There's something important about being able to talk and think and speak about sexuality. But a few years ago, I realized that there was a piece that was missing, which is the somatic piece, the experiential piece, how we experience erotic desire in our bodies, how we relate to that kind of energy, what we do with that. And I realized that while talking about it is valuable, there's only so far that can take you. So the difference between somatic sex coaching and the more talk-oriented stuff, which I still do, is kind of like the difference between cooking a meal for someone versus giving them a cookbook to read. Some people love to read cookbooks. They get lots of inspiration, lots of ideas. Some people really like to talk and think and read about sex, but it's only when you start putting it into practice that you can figure out what's genuinely working for you.
Could you explain a little bit what the word somatic means for listeners out there who are not familiar with this word?
Sure. So somatic refers to anything that is body-based, experiential. So, for example, it's the somatic approach would be things like, if we're going to talk about exercise, I'll talk about exercise. Somatic work might be helping somebody do yoga or lift weights correctly. It's giving somebody a physical experience so that they can explore how that feels in a safe context, and then they can figure out what they want to do with that in their personal lives.
Great, thank you.
So the important thing for me with the somatic work is giving people a safe container to discover new ways to connect with their sexuality.
Beautiful, thank you. And how, I know obviously like talking about it and practicing with someone is a different kind of experience. How is that different for you, moving away from just doing coaching?
Well,
it's been a while for you.
It has been a little while. It has been. And just to be clear with folks, the work that I do is within the sexological bodywork structure, which I know you are trained in, Martha. Mm-hmm. And so just so people understand that the work is all, if there is physical touch, it's hands only. I'm not actually having sex with my clients. Some people mistake what I do with sexual surrogates, which is a different kind of work.
Yeah.
The way that I work with folks is a lot of breath work, a lot of experiential practices. As an example, there's an exercise I do with many of my clients where I'll take their hand or their arm from their elbow to their hand, and they'll take 3 or 5 minutes and tell me how they want me to touch them. So long strokes down to my wrist, or little circles with your fingernails, or tapping on the back of my hand. For many people, we don't actually learn how to tell a lover what we want them to do. And so when we practice giving someone instructions for how you want your hand touched, that's the foundation for being able to say to a partner, I'd prefer it more if you touched my clitoris more softly, or I want you to stroke my penis in this way. And so it's giving people these foundational skills so that they can tell their partner about it. And what I realized was that I can talk with someone for hours and hours about the importance of boundaries and the value of good communication, or we could take 5 minutes and have a physical experience, a somatic experience. And then they have much more useful data to then go home with and talk to their partner.
Yeah, it's like describing a picture versus showing it to them.
Exactly. Much easier.
Much, much easier. And sometimes in my work, it is frustrating because I am not allowed to touch my clients. Some of them are just not at that mental frame of mind where they can separate in their head the difference between someone who does touch and somebody who is a sex worker. So in my culture, because of where I'm located, it's just easier not to do any hands-on touch. And coming from the training from sexological body work, it was very difficult to then have to work with those constraints of not being allowed to touch my clients.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and the difference, you're right, there are big cultural differences, not just from one country to another, but even within a single country. I learned sexological body work in California. Now that I live in Washington State, it's still a fairly progressive, open culture. So I have a little bit more flexibility, perhaps, than you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So could you tell us more about the benefits of somatic sex education and what it can do to help people?
Sure.
Thank you.
So some of the benefits, if I'm working with someone, so one of the big benefits is if I'm working with someone and they have a difficult experience, maybe I touch their arm in a way that they find triggering, or we do something that stirs up a lot of emotion. It's easier for me to let them have their experience and talk with them about it, support them through it, than it would be for a partner. Because with a partner, partners always have their own desires, expectations, and needs. So in some ways, it's the difference between talking with a therapist and talking with your best friend. When you're talking with a therapist, you don't need to know anything about their personal life. Because it's a professional relationship, it can be one way. But if you're talking with your best friend about whatever's going on, your friend is also going to want you to talk to them about their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So one benefit is just it's a cleaner container, a cleaner context. Another benefit for it, though, is that you get to discover and explore things that you might not have known you were going to enjoy, and that's amazing. One of my favorite things is when my clients go home, having discovered 3 new things about their bodies or their sexualities that they had no idea were there. And you do that much more easily in the context of a sexological bodywork session.
It's true. I love what you're saying. Discover and explore things they didn't know they enjoy. Often we get stuck doing the same things that we do because they work, and then we get stuck and, just in comfort zone all the time. And so it's really good to be able to explore things with they wouldn't have otherwise. And with somebody, like you said, is one way who is a professional, and therefore they feel freer to separate this. I think it's very important that they are able to do so, because then they finally get that it's not, I don't know what's the word, it doesn't have to be mutual all the time. And it becomes clear in their head until they do it that, they really, really get it, that they do need to speak up about their needs, wants, and desires. Otherwise, their partner just won't understand. So, more with Charlie after this break.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Are you ready to shift your energy, consciousness, and limiting beliefs? Join me, Shefali Burns, every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Shifting with Shefali here on OMTimes Radio. Shift the blocks, limitations, and negative energies that have kept you from experiencing a life filled with joy, peace, love, abundance, and happiness. Are you ready to shift with Shefali? Are you ready to shine your brilliance?
Welcome to the gathering around my kitchen table on Equilarium FM, Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join my guests as we integrate spirituality into everyday reality with vibrant conversations, inspired interviews, and my latest channeled guidance to inspire and brighten your day. I'm Claire Johnson, and together we'll be raising vibrations across the nations.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Free your mind with OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You are listening to Arrow's Evolution on the OMTimes Radio Network. You can share this show with your friends right now by sending them the link on omtimes.com/mobile. That's omtimes.com/mobile. With this link, your friends will be able to listen to this show without needing to download any app. That's really cool. Your friends will like and appreciate you sharing this with them. We are with Charlie Glickman, and we are talking about getting the sex you really, really want. Just before break, we were talking about somatic sex education and how it can help people. And Charlie listed 2 benefits, and they include being able to separate the difference between therapist and best friend, having a clearer context. And number 2, being able to explore things they didn't know that they enjoy. So these are 2 big benefits of seeking out somatic, then that's body-based sex education. So Charlie, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And what are the other benefits of somatic sex education in your opinion?
Well, I think one of the big ones is that sexual growth and sexual healing, they happen over time. It's not something that can happen necessarily just in one session or just one experience. And when you're working with someone who's trained in these fields, they can help you by focusing on the big picture. So when I work with a client, sometimes my clients feel a little overwhelmed with everything or everything that they're trying to deal with. And what I tell them is that it's not their job to worry about how we're going to get there. Right? We talk about where they want to go, and then we agree on the big structure for the plan from how to get from A to B. But then they don't have to worry about every little step along the way. That's my job. And it makes a big difference because then they can focus on whatever is right in front of them. What are we dealing with today? And I can worry about how that fits into the big picture.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering because people think that sex coaches like us, we have all the answers and we know everything. So how do you know how to get there? And what if it doesn't,
And what if it doesn't? Well, how I know how to get there is I talk with my clients in the first couple of sessions. And I always start with a half-hour phone or Skype call just to talk about where they are and where they'd like to go. And usually people are pretty clear about where they are. Yeah. Most of the time they know where they want to go. They're just not sure how to connect to the dots. So, for example, I had a client who she had recently gotten divorced. She was getting back out on the dating world, and she just didn't know what sex looked like for her now because she knew that it was different than what she had been doing with her husband for those years. And so we were able to, the way that we progressed was we explored different ways of flirting, different ways of talking to people. We did pleasure mapping, which is an experience in finding out, where are the erogenous zones and what feels good to you. And each session built up from one to the next to the next. And when she decided that we were done, she had learned all of these different pieces about her sexuality. And the way that I manage that is just each time my focus is where are we today and what's the next step in the direction you want to go. So it varies quite a bit, but I always develop the plan with my clients because I want them to be fully on board with it at every step.
Beautiful. Thank you. So these are the 3 big benefits of somatic sex education. How about, I know this is, some other things that I'm curious about. How about people who have gone through some kind of traumatic experience? Do you suggest somatic sex education as well?
I do. It requires a slightly different approach. One of the things about working through trauma of whatever type is that, there is a physical response. The body goes into the contraction of whether it's post-traumatic stress disorder or dissociation or whatever it is, the body goes into a physical response. And so my role in those moments is to let somebody move through the process of that and then be ready to catch them when they come out of that, if that makes sense. So somebody might go into a contraction, they might have some big feelings come up. We'll talk about that. I may offer emotional support around that. And then as a way of experiencing that those responses don't have to be the stopping point, we can continue in whatever direction they want to go. So I actually think that somatic work is much better at helping people move through trauma than just talk-based work. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be somatic sexual work, sexual education, but learning how to integrate the body into your healing is important.
Yeah. It's one thing to say you get it. It's another to really get it. That's why I often say, we understand at a level, and then we really need to get to a deeper level of understanding in our bodies. That's how I feel. Absolutely.
Absolutely. As one example, I had a client who had a tendency to, many of my clients are women. I do work with folks of all genders, but this is the second example of working with a female client. She did have a tendency to tune out when things got to be too much. She would just kind of check out. And so we were doing a session, and she started to go there, and I was able to very gently stop what we were doing. And I asked her, okay, I saw something shift. Can you tell me what was going on in your body?
Great.
And through that process, she was actually able to identify when the dissociation started.
Yeah.
And then she was able to learn to interrupt the dissociation to keep it from happening.
Great.
But we couldn't have done that if we'd only been talking. I had to actually see it.
Yes. Fantastic. It's about paying attention and being with your client every breath of the way. What I find is we have tendency and we have patterns. And so when we break such patterns very consciously, then our lives can actually change dramatically.
Oh, incredibly so. You're absolutely right.
I'm so glad somebody like you is doing this work.
Thank you. I'm glad you're doing your work too.
I see a lot of value in somatic sex education. Unfortunately, some of the people who are doing this work in Singapore, they are really quite dubious about the way they're doing. They are not governed by any code of conduct or ethics, unlike sexological body work. And so I find it very hard-pressed to find anybody that I trust that I could recommend my clients to. So it is a challenge, and we need good practitioners in the industry. And I'm very glad you're doing this work.
Thank you. There are some good teachers. I know that the sexological bodywork training that we both went through has quite a bit of this. I also I learned a lot about it from Betty Martin, who is also here in Seattle, but she travels all over. She teaches some very good classes on consent and touch and boundaries. And there's also a new book that just came out called Safe Sexual Healing that might be worth looking up. I don't know. Let me look that up because I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Yeah. Sure. I'm familiar.
His name is...
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. What's the name? Sorry.
His name is Sunyata Sachitananda. I've never met him, but I did read his book. I thought it was great.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send you the link.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm familiar with Betty Martin's Will of Consent, and I was taught this in the sexological body work, not the one that I attended, but the second one that I attended, where I was a teacher trainer. And I am teaching Will of Consent in my work, and I believe that there are people also teaching it in Bali. So it's really tremendous what she's taught and how she is allowing practitioners to carry on her work and have a much greater impact. She's really, really fabulous. She's amazing. She does excellent work. And you are one of those people whom I think does excellent work as well. I've been following your blog for years, and it's really, really excellent. I keep a lot of the blog entries that you have, and they are like gems of wisdom that I really relish.
Oh, thank you. That really means a lot to me.
It is true. You must get quite a bit of fan mail and praise.
A little bit. People, I get less than you might think, though, because people are much more, they're more likely to complain when something doesn't work than they are to say when something does work.
Yeah.
So,
after
I was,
yes. Yeah, it's true. It's true. After 7 years of doing this work, I'm pretty amazed how little thanks and appreciation I get. I don't know whether it's the culture, but having been doing this work for a while, I can understand how people really don't speak out as much as they think we get.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I get where you're coming from. So we're coming up to a break in 2 minutes. So we want to go into some of the blocks that people have when it comes to being able to share their sexual desires or their desires with their partner. What would be some of them? Maybe just briefly, and then we continue after the break.
Okay. I think the biggest one is shame. And there's shame about our desires. There's thinking that our partners are going to judge us. There's feeling guilty about asking for what we want. It's really all about shame for so many people. That's the big one. I'd like to start there actually after the break, if that's okay.
Sure. I can
great.
think of a few. There's shame, embarrassment, fear of getting it wrong. So many.
Yeah. Well, and the difficulty, there's a lot to say about shame. I think the big one, though, is shame either our own or our partners, or sometimes we're carrying shame from, way back when we were children.
Okay. More with Charlie after this break.
Great.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Eros Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, clinical sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Looking for inspiration?
Want to be inspired?
Not sure where to go?
Find Mark and Kim every Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on Inspired Living.
Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience and all things spiritual.
Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake. The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Eros Evolution. We are talking about getting the sex you want. And we are with Charlie Glickman. And it's a mouthful for me. I'm not good with names. You can go to his website and find out more about his work, and that's charlieglickman.com. That's GLICKMAN. And you can also follow him on Twitter and Facebook. He also has a second website that features his sex coaching and sexological bodywork services, which is makesexeasy.com. So just before break, we were talking about some of the blocks that keeps people from being able to share their desires with their partner. And we were talking about shame being a big one. So take it away, Charlie.
Sure. So I think the big difficulty when we're talking about sexual shame is that it gets transmitted from one person to the next. And so it moves from person to person. It gets transmitted within families. And so here's an example of what I mean. Imagine that there's a young child, a boy, maybe 6, 7, 8 years old, whatever, and he is masturbating, which is something that is very common for children and totally fine. And his parents catch him, and they shame him for that. They yell at him, they punish him, they tell him that he's dirty, they tell him that it's shameful. When he grows up, if he has children, and then he discovers his children masturbating, he has one of 3 choices. He can yell at them and shame them because he's so uncomfortable with it that that's all he knows how to do. He can try and avoid it, pretend that it didn't happen, not talk about it, or he can heal his own shame so that he doesn't have to impose it on someone else. And sexual shame is so difficult to work through that most people just end up either shaming someone else or avoiding it because they don't want to get triggered themselves. And so it gets passed from person to person. My parents, parents shame children who grew up and shamed their children who grew up and shamed their children, and on it goes. At its core, shame is the message that says, I don't want to be with you. I think there's something wrong with you. I think there's something bad about you. And that completely shuts down sexual connection because sex brings people closer together, or it can bring people closer together. And so when you have shame, what you're basically saying is stay way over there because you're bad. And I talk with people who have so many different kinds of shame. I talk to women who feel shame because they're orgasmic and they think that they're too sexual. I talk to women who feel shame because they have difficulty with orgasms and they've had people tell them that they're frigid, which is not a real thing, by the way. I've had men who feel shame about their body size or their penis size or not getting erections, or men who feel shame because they don't want to have sex every minute of the day and they think that men are supposed to want sex all the time. And it's only when we start healing these that we can really step into getting the sex that we want. So, anytime I'm working with a client, I'm always tracking, what's the shame that's going on here? Is there shame going on here? And what do we do about that? And it's almost always there.
Yeah. So it's great that you talked about tracking, because then when you find it in their bodies, you ask them where, and then the story comes out.
Exactly. And so there's a story of, the first time I had sex, I couldn't get an erection, or, my boyfriend told me that, I was too fat, or, it takes me too long to have an orgasm, whatever it is, there's always a story there. And then we can actually start healing the shame by looking at the story and finding new stories to create.
Beautiful. So what can we do about this sexual shame that we basically picked up?
Well, I think there's a few things. One is learning shame resilience. And for that, I'm a big fan of Brené Brown's book, I Thought It Was Just Me. I think we can also, rather than trying to run away from shame or hiding it, you mentioned a minute ago, there's a story there. So what do we do about that story? Do we need to create new stories? Do we need to grieve and mourn what we lost? Do we need to get angry at whoever it was who told us these stories? Whatever it is people need around shame, it varies tremendously. The most important thing is to be able to say to yourself or to your partner, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just right the way you are, and let's figure out what to do with that. So that's my goal when I'm working with people who are experiencing shame is let's come back to that place of, there's nothing wrong with you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I think the word reframing came to my mind. It's very easy for me to say, how about having this perspective? But sometimes client can't really wrap their head around it, and they sometimes get the message only when they're ready.
Exactly. And so it's being there with them until they're ready. And that's one of the big difficulties when we see people experiencing shame. We sometimes want to reassure them or make them feel better, and we say things like, "Oh no, there's nothing wrong with you."
Yeah. And so that can make them feel worse sometimes by using the wrong words.
Exactly. I think what's better, instead of saying, "Oh no, there's nothing wrong with you," to be able to say, "Wow, it looks really painful for you to feel like there's something wrong with you. Let's talk about that." And we actually need to move through the shame rather than avoiding it.
Yeah, there are so many layers there that we can talk about. One of the things that makes getting through this shame rewarding is the freedom that one can come from it. The freedom, the power, the liberation and joy that can come from not carrying all this inside us and in our bodies sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's so much more freedom when we can let go of it.
So what else can we do besides developing shame resilience?
Well, I think it's really valuable to have other people in our lives who share some of the same perspectives that we want to have. This is why community is so important. And, there's value in live in-person community. There's value in online community. One of the great things about the internet is that people who used to feel isolated from each other because they had sexual desires that they didn't know how to talk about can find each other. And this isn't limited to the BDSM community, but that's one good example where people, I might have kinky fantasies and not realize that I'm not alone. Like I might feel completely, totally alone with that and feel a lot of shame. Whether I meet people, in person or online, just knowing that there are millions of other people who share my same interests does a lot for helping folks build shame resilience.
Great. Being able to have, I think we are, I was introduced to this word resonance recently, where if you are with a group of people, say even two people, we will rise to the resonance. We will rise to the same kind of vibration or energy as the person who is of a stronger energy. So when you are with an online community, you start vibing together, and this is where transformation can happen quite quickly for these people.
Absolutely. My grandmother told me once that you should spend time with people who are like the person you want to be.
Yeah.
And I think this is a perfect example of that.
Great. So be with people who inspire you, who you want to be, versus people who only make you feel safe, because then you're never actually going to grow. You only hear what you want to say, and you just be stuck.
Yeah, exactly. So it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think I've been guilty of that.
Yeah. Do you sometimes forget to reach out to other people?
Yeah, because I'm a very much an introvert and very much a highly sensitive person. And in my work, people make fun of me and tries to keep asking me questions. And sometimes I don't want to be answering questions around sex. And so I withdraw. And this is one of the reasons why I don't reach out to people who inspire me, whom I want to be. So we're talking about shame. So we talked about two things. One is develop shame resilience, and one is mixing with people of the similar perspective or having a community. Anything else you'd like to add with regards to sexual shame?
Well, I guess the last thing is that it can be really valuable to work with a professional, whether that's a coach, whether that's a therapist. The value in that is that their agenda is only to help you. Whereas, if you're talking with your boyfriend or your wife or your best friend, they have their own perspectives and their own needs. And this is why, I've had therapists multiple times in my life. I think it's a great way to get that extra support that we all need sometimes.
Yes, I was just going to add that this is definitely one of the things that we should put on the list, because there are people like you and I who are very dedicated to our craft, and especially you've been working in this field for over 25 years, and you come up with tremendous work, and you also have a book, The Ultimate Guide to Prostate Pleasure. So this makes you a leader in this field, because not many people dare to talk about that.
Well, thank you. I love it. I love talking about this stuff.
Because there's lots of shame around it. And I was talking about, we'll talk more about this after the break.
Okay.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
The truth is, you can't change the world if you're broke. I know. I tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
If you remember living fearlessly, joyfully, and in a world filled with adventure, happiness, pleasure, and unbridled living, then this show is for you. Join me, Dame Nicole Brandon, as I bring you the world's top experts in wealth, creativity, flow, seat-edging technology, space, wellness, health, love, lust, and passion, all merging together each week here at the Hub of Happiness. Mondays at 6 p.m. Pacific Time and 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Passionate Living, where you can ride on the magic carpet ride of living and learn how to lead a passionately wild, exciting, and outrageously amazing life.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Eros Evolution. This is Dr. Martha Tara Lee. I'm a clinical sexologist based in Singapore, and my company is called Eros Coaching. eroscoaching.com. You can follow me there. And I'm with Charlie Glickman, and you can follow him on his website. That's Charlie Glickman. That's Glickman. And here's another website for his coaching and sexological body work services, makesexeasy.com. Just before break, I was talking about shame around the anus, and I was just beginning to share this story, how I was recently talking about anal massage and prostate massage with a sexual partner, and he started to use the word deviant. He called me deviant. And I was pretty cool with that because I feel that since I have more education, therefore I am more open-minded. And if he wants to call me deviant, that's fine. So that's my little story, Charlie.
That, I hear that a lot. I mean, it's funny. You write a book about prostate play and suddenly you hear all kinds of stories about experiences.
Yeah, and I was just asking you offline just now whether you ever get tired of talking about the prostate or the anus.
Not yet. If I do, I'll let you know, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, it's something that a lot of people don't talk about, and I'm so glad actually that you are doing it, and that makes you somebody who's at the forefront of sexological work, and really somebody to keep an eye out for, because your work is really, for me, I feel groundbreaking.
Thank you. Me too. That means a lot to me to hear.
Thank you. So for those of you who are interested to subscribe to Charlie's blog, he writes fantastic blog posts, and I really recommend that you go back and read through the past ones. You can also subscribe to his blog by emailing him through his website, charlieglickman.com. Is there anything you would like to add, Charlie, that I missed out?
Yeah, please. While I love doing the somatic work, I know that it's not available for everyone. Some people want more talk-oriented support. Some people aren't located here in Seattle, or I do work with people when I'm traveling. But I do a lot of coaching over Skype, and I'd like to offer for anyone who gets in touch with me, remind me that I said this on the podcast. I'd like to offer 50% off your first coaching session when you came to me through the podcast. So just let me know, and we will take care of that. And I'd be happy. I always offer a free 30-minute get acquainted call to talk about your situation so that we can make sure that I'm the right fit. Right. If you're interested, makesexeasy.com has a contact page, and it goes right into my email inbox.
Fantastic. So Charlie sees clients of all genders, sexual orientations, and relationship styles at his Seattle, Washington office, but you can also get him over Skype. So you can schedule your free 30-minute get acquainted call, and you can find out how he can help you make sex easy. That's makesexeasy.com. And he's also very generous in offering this, what he just mentioned, 50% off the first session. That's extremely generous. So please make full use of this offer and his generosity.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I really love you and your work, and I think everybody should know what you're doing and the excellent work that you're doing. So we're talking about sexual shame. What are some ways these issues affect men and women differently?
Well, I think one of the big things is that, as a general rule, women tend to experience shame around not feeling like they can do everything. Right? We have this myth, at least in Western culture, we have this myth that women are supposed to be able to have a career and raise their kids, and the house is clean and the kids are well behaved. And a lot of women feel shame when they're not all of those things. In a sexual realm, that plays out when women feel like they're not sexy enough, or they're too sexual, if they don't orgasm frequently enough, or if they orgasm too much. So there's a lot of that kind of thing. For men, the shame often comes up around not being, strong enough, macho enough, muscular enough, Penis size shows up a lot with this. It has a lot more to do with sexual performance than anything else. And I do a lot of work with folks to help them overcome those sorts of things too. So that's really where a lot of it is it's really, if you take the stereotypes of what we think sex is supposed to be like for men and women, those are the things that people feel shame around when they're not. So for example, women don't feel shame about, getting an erection, but men certainly do. On the other hand, men don't usually feel shame. Men don't get slut shamed and told that they're too sexual. Mm. So yeah, it goes in lots of different directions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great one. Yeah, great one. I certainly see these same issues coming up in my work. So in your work, you also talk a lot about sex positivity. So do you think sex positivity is the way that is going to help cure all this sexual shame?
Well, it gets tricky then when we start looking at it that way, because sex positivity, a lot of people think that sex positivity means that you enjoy sex or you have lots of sex or you have a lot of kinky sex. And I don't think that that's true. For me, sex positivity is more about how we respond to people whose sexualities are different from our own. So if you are monogamous, heterosexual person, how do you feel about people who are gay or lesbian or who are swingers? And on the flip side, if you're a swinger, how do you feel about people who are monogamous? So I think that has a lot more to do with it. And the other big question here about, how is sex a spiritual experience? I think that plays into this a lot because in my view, spirituality is a highly individual experience. For some people, spirituality might mean hiking in the Grand Canyon, and for another person, spirituality might mean meditating in a temple, and for someone else, spirituality might mean going to church. And I think sex is in many ways just as variable. So the connection between sex and spirit is also very individual. So yeah, everyone has a different way of doing that.
And how do you make sense of spirituality for yourself?
Well, I think that especially when we're talking about sexuality, sex is a great way of getting us outside of our own boundaries and having a more expansive relationship with the world around us. And to me, that's what spirituality is about, is having that deeper connection. And sex is one way that we can do that. It's not the only way, but it's certainly one that has worked well for me.
Great. Yes, I definitely agree with this. We're not talking about religion, we're talking about spirituality, and all of us can relate to that to a certain level.
I hope so.
Is there anything that you would like to mention or talk about before we close the show?
Well, I guess just that, for each person out there listening, whoever you are, whatever your sex life looks like today, because that will change over time, whatever your sex life looks like, whatever your relationship looks like, where you are right now is perfect. And you also have some amazing new places.
Thank you very, very much for coming on to today's show. That's Charlie Glickman, and we have been talking about getting the sex you want. You can follow him at Twitter, Charlie Glickman, and Facebook, charlie.glickman, and also his website, charlieglickman.com. And he has another website for his coaching and sexological bodywork services, makesexeasy.com. You can follow me on arrowscoaching.com. I'm on a 30-day orgasmic yoga journey and I'm on day 8. So you can find me and my orgasmic yoga journey on Orgasmic Yoga, the book on Facebook, where I'm documenting each day of orgasmic yoga practice. If you're not sure what orgasmic yoga is, join me on my Facebook group. And remember, Charlie is offering a free 30-minute get acquainted call and as well as 50% off first session. You can reach out to him by quoting Arrows Evolution, and the website to contact him on is makesexeasy.com. This has been Dr. Martha Tara Lee, and next week we have Dr. Agata Lowy. She is from Poland, and she's going to be talking about how she has been bringing sex positivity to Poland. This is very much a Christian Catholic country, and she has been talking about having a space where she's bringing about BDSM and kink communities, as well as LGBTQIA. That's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning. I stands for, and A stands for asexual. What is I?
Intersex.
Intersex, that's right. So basically, she has a community for people of all kinds of sexual orientations, and she has been doing groundbreaking work. So if you love this show, then stay tuned for next week. This has been Dr. Martha Tara Lee with Charlie Glickman.